Hey, everybody. This is code that comes from Unit 7, Lesson 6. And it is specifically looking at an insertion sort. And I thought I'd take a moment to kind of walk through the code that's a possible kind of answer to the question that's there. And in order to just solve problems like this, we really need to be able to kind of understand what's happening, as well as to be able to trace through kind of what the code is in and of itself. And so, what I have here is I have an algorithm that is deemed sort and print. You'll notice that this particular method takes in a string array. So we're sorting a string array, particularly in this case, which means that we need to use the compare to function eventually. So keep that in mind in the process. So the first thing to know is that we do have two different loops. We've got a loop that starts here that's a for loop, and then a little while later we've got an inner loop that's a while loop. You can program this, of course, using a for loop and then another for loop. They can operate in a similar manner, and there are some reasons why that's beneficial. But for this particular example, we've got a for loop and a while loop to help you to understand it. I'm going to go ahead and feed in this array up here of strings, and our goal in the end is to sort this alphabetically. So to do this, we started out with our integer in this first loop, this first for loop I, and I'm running I here from 1 to kind of the length of the array itself. Why would I start with 1? And the assumption here is that on an insertion sort is that this first element here, we're just going to assume it's already sorted. So if you have a list of 1, like a length of 1, we would say that that length of 1 list is already sorted. And so what we're really going to do is we're going to start out here with the second thing in the list, or index 1. So here's index 0, here's index 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to be looking first at our first index, right? So with the word joke here, and compare that, or maybe insert it into this list of 1. And the list of 1 is this word soul. So we're going to look at that list of 1, and we're going to figure out where it fits in, and then we'll put it in the right location. So when we get down here, I have some comments, right? So this one says get element to be inserted. So we do need to go ahead and create kind of a temporary variable here that I'm calling val, or value, right? Which is going to take in whatever is in my array in the first position. So it's going to store kind of what is in that first position. So I'm going to write down some notes down here, and I'm going to say that val, or it begins and it stores the word joke, right? So joke is now inside val. I might also go ahead and throw in and say that I, right, is equal to 1, right? And then as we go down, we can say we iterate backwards through the sorted array until the correct position is found, right? So the sorted array in this case is a length of 1. So I'm going to go backwards through that one, comparing to each one as I'm working my way in. This is when the first higher element is found, or the start of the array is reached, right? So I want to stop when I get to the beginning of the array, so at 0, or I need to stop when I've just made it past that first thing to insert it alphabetically. And then I'm going to move all of the other elements forward as iterating space to put the inserted element inside of it, right? So here we get into it. So int position equals I. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in position here. And position equals I. So that means that position equals 1. So I equals 1, position equals 1 as we start things out. And we get into our while loop. It says, I'm going to do this while position is greater than 0, and the val, right, which is this val over here, compared to the position minus 1. So right now, position is 1, right? So position minus 1 is 0. So we're looking at that element right in front of it, which is the word soul. So we're comparing val, right, which is joke, and we're going to compare that, excuse me, to the one right in front of it. Excuse me. So I'm comparing joke to soul. And the compare to function here, if you remember, it actually looks at val, it looks at whatever is in here, and if it is less than, meaning if the J is kind of alphabetically before the S and so on with it, then it will give a value less than 0. And it's not necessarily -1, it's just a negative value. If it is the opposite way around, meaning that this J was alphabetically beyond whatever is in this case, then it would give a value that is greater than 0. And if they were alphabetically exactly the same, meaning they'd be the same word, then you would end up with a value that is exactly 0. So right now, this will, on the first go round, like when you get to this point and say, while this is true, it'll do the things. And in this case, it is true because val, right, is less than 0 when compared to this +1s, because joke is alphabetically before this. And what it does inside of it is it says my array position, remember that position is 1 over here. So my position 1 is going to equal my position -1. So what that looks like if I was to type or write this down is that I would now have a new array that is soul. That's not soul. Soul. And then I'm going to copy this one into this one as well. So now I have soul, soul, and then torch, mind, lease. Right. So here's where the new one, once I get down to these stars, all right, that's what's going to happen. Now I'm going to take my position and I'm going to subtract from it. I'm going to decrement it, right, as it goes. And it used to be 1, and now position is going to be 0 instead, right? And then it's going to go back through the loop and it says, hey, is position greater than 0? No, position isn't greater than 0. So it's not going to do that while loop anymore. And now it's going to come down here to this place, right? And it's going to insert my element at my array. Position is going to equal val. Remember that position is 0 now. So it's going to replace whatever is in position 0 with val, right? And so my new one is that I'm going to put in joke where the position 0 is. So now it's going to be joke, soul, torch, mind, and lease, right? And then we get down to the end and it says print current array, right? And then it will print whatever the array is at every stage. So this is what's asked for in lesson 6 to print, right? Because this is called sort and print. And so down here, I have a for each loop. This is for each value inside of the array. It just prints out S and puts a space in between them, right? And then it puts a print line in here so that it can move to the next line underneath. So it prints out everything just like I wrote along the way. All right, we're still inside the for loop, right? So if we're still inside the for loop, let's go ahead and go back to the top. We're in here, and now in the for loop, my I is going to become 2, right? Because I started with 1. My array length is more than 2, right? My array length is actually 5, so I'm still going because I is definitely less than that. And when I get down to this step in the game, my string val equals ri. I is 2, so my val now, instead of being joke, is this next value out, right? So my val is now torch. Now keep in mind that what it's assuming now is that this part of the array is sorted and the other stuff is not yet. And so we want to put torch kind of into our sorted array. My position when I get down to this point is that my int position is going to equal I. So I'm going to make that now into a 2. And we get into our while loop now at this point. And in our while loop, position is greater than 0, which it is. And my val is going to compare to position -1. So position is 2. Position -1 is the one right in front of it. So I'm going to compare torch now, right? And I'm going to compare that to the one right in front of it as we go, and we're going to see if it's less than. Now, T is not less than S. So alphabetically, T comes after S, which means that this while loop here needs an and it is not less than 0. And for that while loop doesn't even run. So it skips the while loop and it comes right down to this next place where it says insert element into the array, where I'm going to do it in position. Keep in mind, position here is 2. Right? And I'm going to put val right inside of it. So position 2 is where this one is, right? So I'm actually going to put torch right into position 2. Now it's already there, but it's going to do it anyway. It's going to copy it in, right, as it goes. And so now torch is copied into its position. So we end up with joke, soul, and I've now copied torch in the exact same position it was, torch, and then mind and lease, right? So now the part of the list that's sorted is this part of the list, right? And now we would print things out, and then we're going to go all the way back to the top to the for loop again, where now the for loop allows us to say that I is equal to 3. 3 is still less than the length of the list. Val becomes not torch now, but it becomes the third thing, which is mind. And go down a little bit further, and you get to this point, and position is not going to be 2, but position is going to be 3. So now we're focusing on this third one here as mind. When we get into our while loop and we say, does the while loop run? Is position greater than 0? Yes, it is. Is val.compare to our position -1? Now, position -1 is going to give us torch, right? We're going to be looking at whatever is in this case and comparing them. And does M come before T? The answer is yes, M comes before T. So we're going to do the thing in the while loop. And what the while loop says is that we're going to go ahead and take the position, which is 3, and we're going to copy it now or place it into kind of position -1. So, well, I stated that wrong. I'm going to go ahead and take whatever is in position -1 as I'm going to copy it into position. So if I do that now, I'm going to go ahead and create a list that looks like this instead, where now it's joke, soul, torch, right? And I'm looking at mind, and I'm actually going to copy here, right, whatever is in position -1, and position -1 is torch, and I'm going to put now here. So I've essentially moved torch over to here, even though the torch already exists there, right? And I've saved mind. Mind is still available for me to put in, but essentially I've copied that over. And in the next go round inside this while loop, position becomes -1 then, right? And it goes back to the top. Now position is still greater than 0, and I'm going to compare the next one. So what I'm comparing at this point in time is I'm comparing val, which is still mind, right? And I'm comparing it not to torch, but I'm comparing it to soul because I'm moving down by 1. Position is -1, so I'm comparing it to soul, and I'm saying, hey, does mind comparatively to soul, does it fit? And the answer is that mind is still less than, if you want to think of it alphabetically first, beyond that. And so we're going to go ahead and run this again. And what's going to happen is I'm going to now push soul over to where torch is, right? And I'm kind of running out of room here, so let me move this piece down a little bit. So now I've got joke, soul, but now soul is also copied here to soul. I still have torch here and lease. All right, so now I've got my list here. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1 from position, right? So position is now 1, right? That's where I'm getting to right here. My position is subtracted. And then I go ahead and say, now I'm getting into my while loop again. Position is still greater than 0. I'm going to compare. And what I'm comparing now is mind to joke. Now, does J come before M or does M come before J? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, J, K, L, M. So M does come after joke, right? Or M does come after J. So this compare to right here is not going to be less than 0, which means that this while loop doesn't run anymore. It doesn't happen because this is no longer true. And we're going to jump out of the while loop. And now we're going to take the position in there, and we're going to put val into it. So the position is 1, right? So in position 1, we're going to copy in the val, which is mind, and position 1 is where this is. Luckily, I already have soul. So now I'm going to copy that in, and I've got joke, and here's mind. I still have my soul because I copied it over. I've got torch, and I've got lease. Thankfully, I still have my soul, right? So now what's the sorted part of the list now is all the way up through, and keep looking. How much do we get? Do I get to count torch in there? Well, what's going to happen when you get up to the top is that I is going to increment by 1 again. Instead of I being 3, I is going to be 4, right? And 4 is this last position. So the part of the list that is sorted goes all the way through torch now, right? So I've sorted all of these things. When we got to here, this was sorted to there. So these are the sorted lists kind of highlighted here. Oops, maybe I don't want to highlight that one. All right, so the sorted lists are as follows. So now I'm looking at lease, right? And I'm going to do the whole thing again. I go all the way back up to the top, right, to that for loop. I is now 4. My val is going to get the thing that is in that position, which is lease. My position is going to equal to I, which is 4, right? And then we're going to go ahead and get into the while loop, right? And when we get into the while loop, we start comparing things, and we say, is lease less than torch? And if you follow this along, oops, that's totally not what I wanted to do. If you follow this along, then what's going to start happening, right, is that, yes, lease is less than torch. So I'm going to move torch over to this position. So we have joke, mind, soul, torch. And then I've moved torch over. So now torch is here, right? And now I would compare it to the next one and say, is lease less than soul? Yes, it's less than soul. So now I get joke, mind, soul, and then soul gets copied over, right, from one to the other. So I've got soul and torch. And then I say, is lease less than mind? LM, yes, it is. It's less than mind. So I go ahead and we're copying over. So we've got joke, mind, soul, and torch. And now when we get to that point, L is after J, right? A, B, C, D, J, K, L, right? So it's not going to be, it's going to break outside of that while loop. It's going to do one last insert, and it's going to insert the position. And as what it did at this point in time is it's going to insert it, and position eventually became 1 through that process as we were subtracting on our way down, right? And so now at this point in time, it's going to insert it. And so it's going to go joke, and then it's going to insert lease. It's going to take over, right? And you still have mind, soul, and torch, right? And at this point in time, it gets to the end of that, it prints out whatever is coming into it, and we go back up to the top to the for statement, right? And we say, hey, the for statement runs while this kind of is true, is I less than length. And at this point, it increments to 5, right? And I is not less than the length of the list because the length of the list is 5. And so it's going to skip that for loop. It's going to come all the way down, all the way to the bottom, I should say. Yep, it's all done, right, as it goes. And this now is my sorted list. So I hope that helps to go through that. That was long and slow, but if you want help going through kind of the process, this might be a helpful tool. So I'm going to leave this video here. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll go ahead and help you out from that. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.